Throughout the season, Mariners bullpen, another excellent season. And we'll start off what I think both you and I agree was the best reliever in this 2023 season. Matt Brash, what's your grade?
Matt Brash gets an A. Look, his season was not perfect. He was a little bit up and down at times, as most relievers would be. But when you put up a 227 FIP, when you put up nearly 14 Ks per nine, and when you rank fourth among all relievers in F WAR, that is an A. Matt Brash did everything they could have expected of him and more.
His expected numbers really jumped all across the board, which was nice. We saw his fastball get another gear this season as well, which is a nice development for him. Even if the results really weren't there, his fastball wasn't a true out pitch. We've highlighted before how his fastball really isn't a true elite fastball, even though he throws it hard. It just doesn't have elite physical characteristics outside the velocity. His slider, though, I mean, really popped some ridiculous numbers this season, better than it was a season ago. I mean, we're talking about an expected slugging of under 240, an elite xWOBA as well, 48% whiff rate on that slider this season, and a 44% strikeout rate. He did get a little unlucky this season, really unlucky, especially early in the season. Finished the season with a batting average on balls in play of about 380. But for a number one reliever in this bullpen, maybe you'd want to see his stats a little bit better, which is why he doesn't get an A plus. He just gets an A. The inconsistencies led to a little bit of an inflation of his ERA. At times you get a little bit wild. His strikeout rate dropped month by month as the season went along, which you'd want to see that stay plateaued. But in the end, he was the fourth best reliever in baseball by F WAR. And you can't ask too much else of Matt Brash if that's the case.
So your grade for him was an A. You might not
It
have said.
was.
Okay. So A's across the board for Matt Brash. Yeah, he had a great year. Super weird. I kind of remember this period of time in, I don't know, May, where there was some Mariner fans claiming he should, I don't know, be sent to Tacoma. Yeah, that was a real take from several fans across Twitter. It's kind of a good thing they didn't do that because considering he was their best reliever, they needed it.
That would have been a bit of a sticky situation for Scott Service. There's one thing I think maybe if he's really going to become an elite, like Felix Bautista level reliever, he was kind of pedestrian against lefties this season, Lau. I mean, here are these numbers against lefties. His strikeout rate was barely above league average, 25.4% strikeout rate against lefties. His walk rate was nearly 11%. His FIP was 2.5 runs higher against lefties than it was against righties. And all that was with a BABIP that was actually lower against lefties than it was against righties. Just like it doesn't feel quite as confident for a dominant reliever to actually not be dominant against some lefties he's facing. That's probably because he doesn't have a pitch breaking away from lefties. He throws a slider in on their hands. He'll occasionally corkscrew one like he did with Jose Ramirez. But when you rely on your fastball a little bit more against lefties, and your slider is not quite as strikeout pitch against lefties as it is against righties, that leads to some inconsistencies in his stats and eventually leads to some outings like we've seen him have where he doesn't throw strikes or gets hit around a little bit. So I'd say that's one thing that if Matt Brash is going to take that next step, that's what he's got to attack.
I think that's all fair. I wonder if those numbers against lefties just kind of flatten out next year in the sense of maybe they just correct themselves. Maybe not. Maybe it's just lefties have a little bit of an edge on Brash, which is possible, but I also wouldn't be shocked if it just kind of gets more even here in 2024. But overall, like we've said about all the guys that we give A's to and still talk about the downsides with, we're nitpicking. We're talking about a guy that was objectively one of the 5 to 10 best relievers in baseball by F WAR. He was fourth. Ks per nine were third among relievers. This guy's awesome. He is, and he's going to be in this bullpen a long time. So look forward to seeing much more Matt Brash. Oh, by the way, Brent Rooker shout out for Matt Brash. So Brent Rooker, he's been way more active on Twitter recently, which is pretty cool. And I think he started to engage with a lot of fans. Seems like an awesome guy, by the way, Brent Rooker of the A's. And a couple things he said this week. Well, he had 3 tweets that just warmed our hearts. Number 1, his favorite road ballpark, T-Mobile Park, he said, in Seattle. He said he loves it. There's number 1. Number 2, Somebody asked, "What stats do you use to try to evaluate your game?" He said, "I like to use hard hit rate, chase rate, walk rate, like all these baseball savant numbers." He said, "I know a lot of people aren't going to like to hear that, but it is very indicative of my game." And I said, "Power to you, Brent Rooker,
And
standing up
and
for the analytics nerds."
I was gonna say, he's like, "These are the stats I can control," which
Huh?
is the biggest point he tried to make.
Yeah, which is great. And number three, the whole reason we bring this up, somebody said, "What's the toughest pitch you've?" Yeah, the toughest pitch you've had to face so far in your career or this season. He said it's Matt Brash's sweeper. And he said, honestly, I couldn't even characterize it as that. Whatever that guy's throwing should be in a whole different stratosphere, a whole different stratosphere in terms of a category. So he's getting shout outs around the league. All we hear about Matt Brash is just how good his stuff is. So shout out to you, Matt Brash.